if I continue sticking to my criteria and not deviate, okay, well, maybe this is a little bit different. I shouldn't do it. I have to stick to that criteria, because if I stick to it, I will find the right projects to buy, right properties to buy, and they will appreciate and work for me and next generations for many years ahead. So working on being patient and sticking to my fundamentals.
Welcome to The Path to Wealth, the show about well-being, fulfillment, and financial freedom. And I'm your host, Hennche. Welcome to The Path to Wealth. I'm your host, Hennche. Today we're joined by Alina Trigub, founder of SEMO Financial. Her professional journey encompasses tax accounting at Ernst & Young, a thriving 2-decade tenure in IT, and a pivotal role in investor relations at a private equity firm. She's a revered speaker at events like the IMN Conference, Raising Money Summit, featured in Forbes, Bankrate, and other major publications. Today, Alina thrives as an entrepreneur and investor. Originally from the Soviet Union, now thriving in the United States. Welcome to the show, Alina.
Hans, thank you for such a warm introduction. I couldn't say it any better. I was actually really impressed while you were reading my bio. So very much appreciate it and grateful to be here on your show.
Well, you had to live to make it impressive. It's your life. So
thank you.
Thanks for taking the journey and thanks for taking time to be here.
It's my pleasure.
So one of the things that I'm also an immigrant in the United States now, almost 15 years over there. What was it like for you to adapt to the American money mindset? And maybe what was the original mindset that you came from in the Soviet Union?
I definitely come from a fixed mindset in general. When you don't have a lot to live on, when you constantly think about what I'm going to have for dinner, it forces you to think slightly differently. So in my case, I was raised by a single mom, and even in Soviet Union, she had to have 2 jobs in order for us to survive and in order to put food on the table. So all I remember from my childhood years is that I really wanted to help in any way I could to my mom so that she could work less, so that I could spend more time with her. And I remember thinking as a child that if I just don't ask her for anything like toys or clothing and stuff, then hopefully she'll work less, because she had a full-time job and a part-time job. So hopefully she'll work less of that part-time job and not work at all, so that we could have some time together. And that kind of stayed with me throughout the years. And when we came here, obviously I was older, but we both wanted to get American degrees. So we ended up going to colleges, respective colleges at the same time. So my mom and I, again, started working a bunch of odd jobs just to survive. So I always had that in mind, that I need to be responsible for my household. And as my household grew after I got married, and then my husband and I had children, I've always kind of had that mentality that I am responsible for my own future and I have to shape it in any way I can. And that contributed a lot to where I'm at today. Also, the fact that I got 2 business degrees, undergrad in accounting and then MBA in finance, also contributed me to learn more about the subjects. I was always curious and continued reading and learning beyond what I learned in school. And gradually I learned about such things as dividend aristocrats or compounding, when you can reinvest your money. And then as our pension plan, stock, 401ks grow at our respective corporate jobs, because I have a 25 plus year of corporate career, I kept thinking to myself, we can't just keep investing in the stock market. I mean, I've been through 3-4 major crashes at this point. How many more? And we're not getting younger. So I wanted to find a way to diversify our portfolio. And another pain point in my head was, with the stock market, anything we earn pretty much is taxed as ordinary income. And, as a former tax accountant, that bothered me. Plus the fact that our careers were growing as tax brackets. And I'm like, we keep paying more and more, plus the alternative minimum tax. I should find something that will help us not alleviate, but at least reduce our tax obligations. And in my research, real estate kept coming up. And I'm like, I have to take an action. And that forced me to start reading, looking, finding out what I could do with real estate. And long story short, I came across private placements about 8 years ago, took action, started investing, and that essentially put me on a journey where I am not only investing, but I also started my own firm, SEMO Financial, with the goal of helping other people, educating them and mentoring them on their path to success and following in my footsteps, because everything I teach my clients is essentially what I've gone through myself, and they learn from my mistakes. I make sure that they don't repeat my mistakes. They can, of course, make their own, but at least I'm sharing my journey and what I've done, and encompassing bits and pieces of the education I received from my 2 degrees to make sure they understand the concepts and they know what to do when it comes to investing in alternatives, not just real estate, but beyond the real estate, because there are so many alternatives. I hope this wasn't too long of an answer.
No, all good. And you have the goal of touching 10,000 people's life, really helping them to shape their future. And I think this is one of the rewarding aspects of when you solve your own problems, when you go through your own hardship, through your own learnings, and you get to turn around and, help somebody else to walk a path that, can eventually lead to financial freedom.
Absolutely. Hans, I have to compliment you. Based on the introduction and your questions, it sounds like you do extensive research about your interviewees. So I'm really honored and impressed by that. Thank you so much for doing that.
It's something that I didn't do in school very well, is doing my homework, but I learned it pays off in life to be prepared.
We all learn best from our own lessons. So yes, and points. Excellent. Good for you.
Yeah. Thank you. What are some of the life lessons that you learned, where you were like, this wasn't natural to you initially, but then you figured, acting or being consistent on something really changes the needle for you and your family?
Absolutely. I learned that it's all about the long-term play. I'm a huge fan of Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, and I'm actually reading Ben Graham book right now, The Intelligent Investor. And I can see where Warren Buffett has got all his lessons and where it's all coming from. It's incredible how much you can achieve if you stay consistent and if you stick to your guns, if you believe in certain investment, regardless whether it's a stock market or real estate or something else. If you truly believe in it, you will be able to reap the rewards many years later. You just need to stick to it and believe that it'll definitely materialize. And I've seen that happen with my investments. And I know, like in terms of the stock market, it's turned in a different direction, and many people are struggling right now. Like I personally have a hard time finding the deals that pencil out. But I know if I continue underwriting, if I continue sticking to my criteria and not deviate, okay, well, maybe this is a little bit different. I shouldn't do it. I have to stick to that criteria, because if I stick to it, I will find the right projects to buy, right properties to buy, and they will appreciate and work for me and next generations for many years ahead. So
yeah,
it's certainly patient and sticking to my fundamentals.
Yeah, fundamentals these days are more crucial than the last couple of years, seeing where interest rates are moving, and we're still not done here. People are still pushing out the interest rates hikes. It looks like it's coming. So fundamentals are more important than ever before. It's not, I keep saying the golden decade of real estate was low interest rates, where even if you had a not that great deal with where the fundamentals didn't quite work, interest rates kind of bailed you out. But now it's really, you have to tighten in on things and, sharpen the pencil to make sure those fundamentals are in place.
100%. And unfortunately, it's not just the financing, everything is impacted. The insurance is impacted. Like I like to invest in Southeast. The Florida insurance rates have gone through the roof. I was on a call prior to this podcast interview with a fellow investor, and he has a property that's on a beach. And he said literally he cannot find an insurance company that would insure his property. It's just nobody wants to deal with flooding anymore. And he really wants to buy it, but no one even wants to touch the property. So challenges like that, in order to overcome it, you have to stay consistent. You have to keep calling more and more insurance agencies and reaching out to insurance brokers to continue fighting. And hopefully, I do hope that he will find the insurance agency that will provide insurance quote for them. But on top of it, the supply chain is still somewhat broken. And the prices have gone up. The inflation has not subsided at all, even though the Feds wanted to come down to 2%. I think that's all thing of the past. If we come down to 3 to 4 and stick to it, we'll be in a good shape for the most part. But that's also impacting our underwriting. And that's what I mean is we have to stick to the fundamentals, because we have to account for all these rising costs in our fundamentals when we're underwriting, not only whether we can buy it, but also whether we can hold this property and whether we'll have enough funds to renovate and still make sure that it's cash flowing.
Yeah. And I think we've seen more and more cash flow compression over the last 2 years. We've seen more foreclosures. It's happening even on larger scales. We've seen it in Houston a couple of times already. We've seen it in different parts of the country. But at the same time, that also means there's opportunity for people that have their fundamentals in check. Is that something that you're taking an eye on? You keep looking for what's happening in the market and where there's opportunity?
Absolutely. So my primary asset targets right now, small retail plazas, mixed use, medical plaza, shopping plazas. And while I still look at multifamily here and there, but I feel like I have enough in my portfolio of multifamily, so it's not my primary target. And with that in mind, and with the rising costs, when I underwrite, if I don't see the property cash flow from day one, most likely I'm not going to pursue it. I don't want it to just sit on the sidelines and wait for the rates to come down and for things to change, because I know something will come up sooner rather than later. But in order to get to the point when I find the property, I have to continue researching, underwriting, and just making sure that the property does or does not pass my criteria. And if it does, then I know we'll move to the next step and potentially have a conversation or make an offer and see where that leads us. So yes, patience is a virtue in this case.
I think patience is a virtue in life in general, isn't it?
That's true as well. If you have kids, then you know it better than others.
Well, I'm not there yet, but I can experience that with my sister's kids. It takes quite a handful.
It is, yeah. It takes a lot, but it teaches you how to become more patient when you have kids.
So, what's your thought on transferring the money mindset, the experience that you've gained, the knowledge you've gained, to the next generation? Basically, like the kids. How do you or how would you go about encouraging them to think? Not like a fixed mindset, but having the mindset that you build over so many decades.
Yeah, Hans, it's an excellent question. And I know from personal experience, the transformation for me did not happen overnight. So in addition to being interested in just getting out of poverty, literally, that was the main thing, because when you live from paycheck to paycheck, and when you thinking, that's how my mom and I thought, like, what are we going to put on our table to eat the next day? That forces you to make an effort and do something with your life. So we, with our college degrees, we were able to get better jobs and get better paying jobs and move to the next level. But on top of it, I also started reading personal development books. And a lot of them are about shifting your mindset from fixed to growth mindset. One of the later ones that I read a couple of years ago was Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck. Amazing book. I highly, highly recommend to people that want to change their perspective. And even that, it's not going to change you overnight. You still be taking some of it, but some of it is not going to sink in. So by looking at yourself and you do something and thinking, wait, why am I saying it this way? I should say it differently. For example, let's take this fellow investor I was talking about. He could have just said, oh, I'm not getting insurance on this property, screw it, I'm going to go to the next one. Instead, what he is saying, how can I make this happen? He keeps calling other agencies, he keeps calling other brokers, he keeps following up with them because he really, really wants to make it happen for him. Yep. And that essentially underlines him having a growth mindset. If you have a growth mindset, instead of saying, I cannot do it, you will stop yourself and you say, what can I do to make it happen? How can I do it? You can tap into other people. You can tap into additional resources. You can become creative and maybe find another option to make your deal happen. But that applies to personal and professional life. And even with me, certain things would sink in with reading this book for the first time. But some of the books I keep rereading multiple times because every time I read, or I should say listen, because I use Audible, something new sinks in. And that was the case when I read the other books that are absolutely amazing, like Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod.
I mean, I also read that, yeah.
It's incredible. He went through near-death experience and became a marathon runner. I mean, how in the world can you do that? And he's just a normal guy. He's regular human being like you and me. And you don't hear about stuff like that every day. But you have to have an incredibly strong willpower and dedication to succeed and make it happen, not only for yourself but for other people. And his story went beyond that first near life death experience. I don't know if you saw his movie. He has a movie, Miracle Morning.
I haven't.
Unfortunately, or I guess for both fortunately and unfortunately, when it was filmed, he got the news that he has cancer. So that experience was also filmed in the movie, and it's incredible what he's gone through the second time around. Luckily, he survived, and he's healthy now. But watching that gives you everything to look at in perspective. What you have now and what other people have now is very, very different. And you have to be grateful for everything you have in your life, because it just could be so much worse. And just be grateful. And that's what I'm trying to think every time every morning when I wake up. Thank God that this is what I have. Okay, my target was to find 3 properties this year, and I'm only on my first one. That's fine. I have my family, everyone is healthy, and I'm super grateful for my surrounding and what I was able to build so far. And every time I'm not in the mood or something is happening, I'm trying to remind myself that there are situations that could be much, much worse that I or other people are going through. So I should be grateful for what's already in the shop for me. And that helps to continue moving forward and making it happen for myself and my clients.
Yeah, wow, that was a lot in there. But I feel the same way about coming from a state of gratefulness every day. And it doesn't mean we don't achieve or we don't go for it. It means we look at what we got, no matter how little or much it is. We look at what we got and we're thankful for what we got. And from there, we can always strive for more, but we come from a place of gratefulness. And I think that's easily overlooked in this day and age more than ever, despite us living the best life of the history of mankind. Like, now the average person can fly around the world. The average person can basically travel in a climate controlled environment without having any hardship. And that wasn't even normal like 50, 70 years ago. My dad grew up in Germany, and he still saw some of the farmland being taken care of with horses and stuff. Like, think about that. That's not that long ago, where people were still using horses to work on farmland. And now you and me,
Absolutely.
we have this complete abundance of comfort. There's an incredible amount of food security. There's everything is at our fingertips. And I mean, now we can order just about anything within a couple of hours. And it's just mind-boggling how well we live. But I think it takes an intentional state to remind ourselves daily how rich and wealthy in that sense we already have of an experience of life. But it's easy to get carried away by all the things that we see on social media on our phone and be like looking at the gap rather than the gain, looking at the richness of life we already have.
Hans, you said the key word, to be mindful and constantly remind ourselves. That's the important piece. If you keep reminding yourself, look at the abundance of food that we have in the stores, look at the abundance of the mother nature around us, look at the abundance of new friends and the community that I build around me. All of that is what we have to be grateful for, and all of that helps us to continue moving forward, and we do have to continue reminding ourselves that we have that, especially on the gloomy days like we have today in New York. It's pouring
Yeah.
outside.
And this is actually something that I find even more important than the money mindset. The money mindset needs to be there in order to provide for our family, and come out of that scarcity where we really don't know how to put food on the table or how to pay the rent the next month. But it's also something that I've learned from a lot of traveling. There's countries that have in general so much less comfort and resources, but the people are so much more fulfilled within their circumstances because they come from a certain state of gratefulness. And at the same time, I've worked for some of the wealthiest people in the world that literally have everything. Anything they can snap their finger and make it available to themselves. And I've seen the lack that they have in their eyes, where you can tell that their sense of fulfillment is not there in their life.
So because they have everything, they're still unsatisfied and they're still looking for something else.
I think that it gets a lot more obvious. See, it's easy for a poor person to say, I'm miserable or I'm like this because I don't have this. But once you're on
Right.
top of the world, and then there's different stages to that. Obviously, you can have like food and shelter security, and you can have a really good job. But then you can still be like, oh, but I have this job. But then, kind of the tip of the iceberg is, I don't know. Let's say you built a company, you went IPO, and suddenly you have tons of cash, but you gave up on your company, you sold it. You're sitting on the beach and you've done everything that people told you is the greatest thing to do with all your money, and you've been on the beach for 6 months, and you're as miserable as it gets. Because then you realize it's not in all of the things. It's not even in maybe in some of the people, depending on who you surround yourself with. It's not even in the experiences. If within yourself you haven't looked at what is life really about and what is the richness of life, and if there is no gratefulness, you can be a multi-billionaire and it doesn't matter, you will still feel empty and poor in a sense.
Yeah, I think it comes from personal fulfillment and what makes you happy. If you have everything and can afford everything, you may or may not be happy. The idea is to find something that's fulfilling for you. For example, several years ago, I reached a point where I knew that just doing and pursuing my life purpose, which is helping other people to follow in my footsteps, was not enough. So I became a lot more active in the local community, started volunteering, donating time and money in a local community because this is where I live and this is where I can make an impact. And it doesn't matter whether I help one person or 10 people, but I know that my input does impact people around me and I can see it firsthand. It's not some distant company
Yeah.
or someone, million miles away. I know that I'm making an impact because I can see it with my own eyes. And if the people that you are referring to that were able to achieve that, not just financial stability, but the point where they sold the company and made their money, and now they're thinking about what their next step is. There are two options. Either they continue searching and find a way, find a path that gives them that satisfaction, which a lot of them find in the philanthropic efforts, or they continue staying miserable. And it comes down to, Hans, what you and I have talked about, growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. If you have a fixed mindset, you can be a millionaire and still be miserable. If you have a growth mindset, that will take you to the next point. And I don't mean necessarily financially. It'll take you to the next point of your fulfillment.
I agree 100%. And I think fulfillment is, I guess, parallel with growth. Like your sense of fulfillment will grow as you grow, so to say, because I think that humans in general, they're not really meant to be couch potatoes, whether that's in like in an estate, in a villa or something, or in like a poor condition. I think we want to be challenged, and our entire system is actually, as much as it's seeking comfort, it rewards you for being active, for going out there, for challenging yourself. And I think that's when you have the right mindset, you're seeking more of those challenges, and there's like this feedback loop of being more rewarded, and then it's even more rewarding if you get to impact other people.
100%. And I want to point out something else for your audience. I don't think that anyone, including myself, can say with absolute certainty that I have growth mindset all the time, 100%, because that's not the case at all. More often than not, things come up where my first reaction, I can't do this, or I can't take this, or I'm gonna stop doing this. I have to stop myself and think, wait, why am I saying that? What do you mean you can't do it? Of course I will do it. It's just instead of 1 week, it'll take 3 months, but I will absolutely do it. And I wish I could say that I stop myself all the time, because that's not the true. I would be lying if I said that. There are still situations where I still have fixed mindset, but I try to stay on top of it and change it and change the way I approach things from I cannot do it to how can I do it. But they certainly still do come up. More often that I would want them at this point, but constantly working. So I would say, at least in my case, it's a continuous growth journey where I'm forcing myself every day and trying to be a better person, a better mom, better friend, better spouse, better daughter to my mom, and so forth. Because all of that also not only gives me satisfaction, but also allows me to positively impact the people in my surrounding, whether it's my immediate family members, or whether it's people in my community, or my friends and colleagues, real estate investors and other entrepreneurs. And for me, that's all I wish for. If I can make an impact on one person at a time, that will absolutely make my day. That's what I live for right now.
Yeah. I can totally relate to. And sometimes I say it like this out loud to me. If I can just impact one person with what I'm doing, that gives me a permission to not get into a fixed mindset. And I'm like, okay, if there's one person I can impact, I can do this because I know I can impact one person. And then I can take it from there, instead of starting, let's say, for example, with the number 10,000, like yourself, that could be so overwhelming in the initial stage of our journey. But you give yourself permission by, today I will impact one person. And 10,000 days, you will still have impacted 10,000 people.
Absolutely. Beautifully said, Hans.
Well, Alina, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom. I wish we could continue this conversation at another point in time. Where can people find out more about the opportunities the investments that you're doing? Where can they learn from you and connect with you?
Hans, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure. People can find me online, LinkedIn, Facebook, or my website, SEMO Financial. But by simply Googling my name, I'm sure they'll be able to find and connect with me. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you. And we'll also make sure to add everything in the show notes so that people can find your website and your LinkedIn right away.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us at The Path to Wealth. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Check out our upcoming guests and be sure to share it with all your friends and family that want to take their life to the next level of wealth.